Hello.
Oh my goodness.
Hello.
All these faces.
Hello.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
We are.
Go.
Well,
Well,
he's an anime character.
Yeah, I'm a VTuber. Yeah,
Cool.
based on a character I made in my light novel.
You're kidding me.
No,
Is that
no.
how you're going to be for the whole thing?
Yeah, I'm recovering from surgery. I don't look the best. Oh, this is easier.
Well, you
That's
look pretty
fine.
cool
I
right
love
now.
Yeah,
love
yeah. I mean, this is better. Preferable.
All right, let's start this thing. Let's get it going. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here with you guys. Hope you're excited to talk with Michael Shanks. I have a feeling that you are. Don't forget that we have a Q&A at the end of the episode as well. We will definitely be answering some of your questions or asking some of your questions to Michael as we go along, but don't forget we will have some time for a Q&A at the end as well. And also at the end, we'll be taking a class photo that'll look something like this. And we'll put it in a nice digital frame and send it to you straight afterwards. And there'll be some other things you're going to get, which we'll tell you about a little bit later on in this conversation here. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, and you already said hi, but please welcome the great Michael Shanks here to our room. How are you?
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hi.
Hello.
Michael, it's so great to see you. Thanks for coming in.
My pleasure, John.
There's a number of people here who want to, let's introduce them. They all want to get into a conversation with you here. Corinne, Kirsty, Peter, and Sandra are here from the UK. Say hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, guys.
Lauren and Jody are here from New York.
Hi.
Hi, guys.
Michael.
I know
Hi,
you.
Michael.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
We've got Linda, Angelita, and Christina from California.
Hello.
Hi.
It's Angelita. Only if I'm in trouble do my parents call me Angelita.
All right, fair enough. I'll keep that in mind. That's the Latino part of me coming out. I apologize.
Yeah.
I appreciate it though.
Angelita. Julie and Rachel here from Texas as well.
Julianne.
Hi.
And then Morgan from Montana, a state I almost went to college in. Morgan, good to see you.
Good to see you. Which school?
Almost.
Almost. Oh, yeah. Montana State, but we're here for Michael Shanks, not for me. So just say
That's true.
Christina is here from South Carolina.
Hey.
Hi.
And Lissa from North Carolina.
Oh.
Hi, Lisa.
John's here from Ohio. Nice name.
Where's John?
All right. And Mara is here from Maine as well.
Hi, Mara.
Hi.
Joel from Colorado.
Hey, actually, 15
Hey.
minutes from NORAD.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah. No, it's not
Nice.
NORAD anymore.
What is it called now?
Well, now it's Space Force.
Oh yeah.
It's
Right.
not. It's not NORAD
Nice.
anymore.
Oh,
They're
good
just
Lord.
admitting what they've been all along.
That's right.
I mean, I
That's right.
guess. I mean, they used to control
Yeah.
the nukes.
Right.
I do.
Laura is here from New England. Say hi, Laura.
Hi, Laura.
And then we've got some international guests as well. Elizabeth here from Denmark.
Oh, wow.
Hi.
Hi.
Long way.
Nora from Australia.
G'day.
Hello. Good day.
And we've got our very own Kiwi in here, Judith from New Zealand.
Hi.
Hi, Judith.
So it's so great that we can all come together here online like this, you know, and this unique stuff that's gone on over the last couple of years.
Oh yeah.
So great to be here in an international way from all over the world. And just want to say a big thanks to the companion for making this
Yes,
happen,
yes.
for hosting
Yeah.
this.
Thanks, guys.
Sorry, before it's too late, did you call Ohio? Because I'm from Ohio. It's me. I don't want to seem antisocial. I thought you said John, so I'm like, is there another John here?
Oh no, I said John from Ohio. Yeah, is that
It's Joe.
the...
It's
Yeah.
Joe. Hi.
Oh, Joe. Sorry.
Joe.
I'm just reading off what I
Oh
was-
yeah, yeah. I get that a lot. Joel gets turned
Sorry,
into
Joel.
Joel all the time.
Apologize, brother. You know, I can only read. I'm like Anchorman. I can only read what's in front of my screen.
Oh yeah. yeah.
Michael,
No worries.
There you go.
Mr. Shanks, Michael Shanks, we're going to get in depth in your acting career and lessons from life.
It'll be a
So-
short dip.
Yeah, we invited some people from your past to come and join us. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Yeah,
Let's
right.
get it started here. Michael, what inspired you to pursue acting? We have a number of people here who are pursuing acting or are interested in voiceover acting and acting itself. And, we've heard in the past numerous interviews that an episode of MacGyver, Richard Dean Anderson, or as Rick, as you affectionately call him, an episode of that inspired you. But what was the full story here? Because you had a chance to be a hockey player. You also were pursuing, I think, a degree in finance, and a calculus credit didn't come your way and kind of pushed you towards the arts. What inspired you or keeps inspiring you?
Well, the first thing I got to say, John, that story that can't tell you how many times that popped up about seeing Rick shooting MacGyver inspired me to be an actor is false, 100% false.
Taking that out of my notes right now. Go ahead.
Because I'd done it. What was happening is I kind of acted since I was knee high to a grasshopper in school, in plays and stuff like that, and I pursued it in community college as well. The thing was, I didn't think it was a possible career option at that point. It wasn't very viable. There wasn't. I live in British Columbia in Canada. A lot of the central, the Canadian productions are done in Toronto. We don't have a great theater scene here in Vancouver, so there wasn't much film going on in Vancouver at the time. So for me, the idea of like packing up and going to LA without anything, to depend on, or a resume to begin with, was a bit daunting and not really realistic. But what happened one day was when I came down, I was auditioning for a play at UBC just before I started going there to pursue a business degree. And we got there early, and so I had some time to kill. So I actually went down to the beach just to hang out, and they were filming an episode of MacGyver down there. And after watching it for like an hour, killing some time there, I realized that there was a bit more of a thriving community coming from the place I'd come from, Kamloops, in Vancouver, and it was growing. And so realizing that, watching this production, I went, hey, maybe there is a chance to do this. I should take this a little bit more seriously. And so that's kind of where that genesis happened. But it was an episode of MacGyver. And so Rick eventually showed up on set. And his stand-in, who at the time was Dan Shea, who ended up being his stunt double and for years on Stargate. And we'll remember that day vividly. He can tell me he can remember exactly every detail about that day of filming. So it was more like seeing that production was an insight into how I could pursue it a little bit more now that I was down in Vancouver.
So maybe more of a catalyst rather than an inspiration.
Yeah, I would say, listen to the inspiration, because it makes it sound like that's where I'd never acted before, and that's what made me want to go do it. But it certainly wasn't that. Yeah.
Well, tell me about I mentioned the hockey thing. I mean, I was an actor for a little while. I totally get it. Looking at it, going like, it doesn't look like I can make money. I got to pay rent. I got to pay bills. You become more practical, and it seems like you've got this mix of practical and creative, which of course comes out in Stargate and numerous other projects when you're creating these characters. Let's go all the way back. What was the inspiration when you were a child? What was the thing? As you said, you acted since you were knee high. What do you remember being the thing? Is there a movie, a TV show? Is there a scene that you saw that was like, okay, wow, I want to do that? Like what would, even as a child, what do you remember what that might be?
I think the only way I've been able to put a finger on it at all was the places I grew up in. I grew up in a town for the first 10 years of my life. I grew up in a town that had about, I think still has about a population of about 6,000 or 7,000 people.
Wow.
So there wasn't much to do.
I can relate.
Okay, it's a place called Golden in the middle of the Rocky Mountains, and there wasn't much to do. We didn't have a lot of, at that time in the 70s, we didn't have much TV. I think the thing that was most exciting for me, this is going to make me sound really old, is that like every Saturday was where my brother and I would go to the movie theater and spend our allowance, and that's where all the the big stories happened, and all the imagination fueling dreams kind of came true. And so in a town where nothing went on, it was my imagination and the outside influence of these stories coming in TV and film that kind of made me excited. And so, like at most kids too, when you're playing make-believe, you want to be part of those worlds.
Yeah.
And then you realize the real way to be part of that world is to be in the business somehow. And of course, we all want to play the exciting we don't want to be the, at that point, you don't want to be the cameraman. You want to be the guy in front of the camera, living the adventures. And so that's kind of what made me want to pursue it. And having an outlet at school and whatnot, doing plays and things like that was the way it kind of started. And like I said, as time marched on, I didn't think it was a possibility to do it professionally, but that changed.
What would you say was your first break? What was the moment where like you got, okay, well, you sensed, okay, this could happen. This might happen for me. Do you have a recollection of your first break in acting professionally?
I think probably I was doing, I finally decided to switch out of business and go do to the theater program, to the Bachelor of Fine Arts program. And I was doing a play called Translations, which is a Brian Friel play at the theater, a very fun production, and a very, really well-crafted play. And after one of the early performances, one of the local agents in Vancouver dropped off a business card and a note saying, please come by and see us.
Wow.
We think you could, do well in this business, and we want to get a head start. This is when I was like in my, second or third year at the university. So I thought, oh, okay, that's a great, kick in the pants. That's, it's real. It's, you just got scouted, if you were.
Yeah.
So that was my first sort of like tip off that this could be a real thing. Cause I'd had other friends who already had agents. They'd been actors from when they were younger and whatnot. And I was like, oh man, someday I'll get an agent, someday, who knows, and that happened. And yeah, it was great. It was like, oh, wow, this could really go on. Yeah.
Right. I do want to ask you one thing connected to this. You finish your first season of Stargate, SG1. All of a sudden, this opportunity to play Hamlet pops up into your lap in 1998. Talk to me about that process. What are you, 27 when this happens? 28 when this happens?
Yeah, it was when it was after the second season, or during the second season when the director contacted me. What had been interesting about that was I had read, before I'd gone off to Stratford a couple years prior, I had read for him. He was doing a production of Henry V. And so I just was out of theater school and, got an audition for it and thought, well, go throw my hat in the ring for this. And read for the director. And it went really well, I thought. What ended up happening was that production never ended up happening for some reason. I'm not sure what. The director himself ended up working on a mini series I was doing that same summer. He ended up acting in it. And so we got talking about that audition and whatever. And therefore, 2 years later, after I'd done 2 years at Stratford, when I was, or 3 years later, when I was doing Stargate, he called me out of the blue to say, hey, do you want to be in this production of Hamlet? And I said, well, sure, what part? And he was like, well, Hamlet. And
I played Hamlet.
Wow.
what?
Nice.
So I was thinking I'm going to be Gravedigger number 4 or something like that, and he puts that on my table. So I'm like, okay, sure. Like thinking it might be a little bit too good to be true. The last Shakespeare he tried to do didn't get off the ground. So and it ended up all coming true, and we ended up spending the early part of the latter part of that season of Stargate casting the show. And by the time we wrapped production, we were in rehearsals for Hamlet. Yeah.
I would love to have seen that.
Nice.
Michael Shanks at that age playing Hamlet, the all the electricity coming out of your fingers playing that. It must have been something incredible. Did you ever see Keanu's version of Hamlet? I know that was in Canada. It's legendary. Did you ever get your way to see that or no?
No, it happened. It happened just when I finished. It happened, I think, when I was at Stratford. It was happening because it happened in Winnipeg at the Manitoba Theatre Center. And it was kind of a running gag. Later on, and I don't know if has anybody seen a mini series called Slings and Arrows?
Yeah, of course. The Canadians. Yeah. Rachel McAdams was in the first season of that.
Rachel McAdams was in the first season of it. That whole
Great series.
First season, especially, how that Hollywood actor is playing Hamlet?
Yes.
That's based on Keanu coming in and playing Hamlet there, because the whole Slings and Arrows mini series, all 4 seasons or whatever it is written by and starring a lot of the people I went to Stratford with.
Wow.
It's all about the Stratford Theatre Festival, and a lot of the jokes are all in joke. I love it specifically because a lot of the jokes are in jokes about the people and the situations that would happen in theater festival, most of which are, too funny to actually, you don't believe them that they could be true, but they are. And that's what makes it so fantastic, including when one of the actors has this accent, and that was the artistic director. The whole time I was at Stratford, Richard Manette, that was his voice that this actor used to mimic when we were at Stratford, and then he ended up playing that character, playing him exactly like this.
Nice.
Yeah, highly recommend Slings and Arrows to you all. It is a fantastic.
Yeah, it's great.
I'll have to look that up.
So let's move on to auditioning, because I know, as I said, a lot of people here pursuing it or are interested in it, or at least interested in your experiences as an actor. You mentioned Vancouver. What is Vancouver's casting scene like versus LA? You've been in 24, you've been in these shows that are stateside. What's the difference when you're looking at getting cast in Vancouver versus LA? What's the process for you as an actor auditioning?
Well, there's 2 very different I guess ways of looking at this, because the one thing that's colossally different from from 2 years ago is the fact that the whole system has changed in the last 2 years.
Sure.
This process, either Zoom auditions, we now can audition this way very rarely, but most of the time we never see a human being. It used to be that you'd walk into a room and you'd audition with a producer or a director and casting people. And that would be a way too that they would get a sense of you as a person versus you as the character, and you'd get a chance to have direction. The director would give you some direction, and just to see what they could do with you, and that you're not locked into one thing, which was great. That's all gone, it seems, because the pandemic introduced basically the monopoly of things being taped beforehand. And unfortunately, everybody on the other side of the camera loved it so much because they didn't have to take time to go to those rooms. They could just do it from their office or their home or their trailer or whatever, and view people that way, that it turned the casting process completely around. Now they love it, and they don't want it to change, even when the pandemic is technically over. They don't want that to change. So most people are now auditioning via tape, which is a horrible process because it involves all the work falling upon the actors to build their studio inside their house or build something inside their house for taping, have someone read for them, have someone talk to them, and then you don't get any feedback.
Yeah.
So you send the tape in, and they don't even give notes anymore. They just either cast you or they don't cast you, and so it feels oftentimes like you're shouting into the abyss. So I don't like it.
So
but
would you say
nobody
that
does.
it equalized things? Would you say that it equalized things, like that now there's not as much difference because you're on tape, whether you're in Vancouver or in LA?
I think that always was the case, that people could, like, when I first started, my first auditions were in the early 90s. And if we wanted to tape for something that shot somewhere else, like in LA, we would literally FedEx a videotape that we had taken in some office with the big camera with the cassette thing or whatever. We would FedEx a videotape down to LA, and that would be a process that would probably cost you about $150 and would take 4 or 5 days, and you never knew if they watched it or not. You found out later on. Now, at least in the last few years, you could tape from anywhere. You could always send a tape in. But now, living in the same town as whatever is not necessarily even important. You could tape from wherever. It does even it out in terms of the playing field, but it doesn't. What I find confusing is that they used to, even with a taped audition, they would give notes and they would give feedback and they'd ask you to do it again. And now they don't even do that. They just kind of go, yeah, that's about right. Let's do that. So I'm not sure. I've seen no actors that appreciate the process. I think because it's largely vacuous. Yeah. And there's no feedback mechanism. So you never hear, you feel like you might as well be doing it in your bathroom and flushing it down the toilet after it's over. So
I mean, that's literally what Hugh Laurie did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. And Yvonne Strahovski, that's how she got cast in Chuck way back
Yeah.
when, sending a videotape from Australia all the way to
Yeah.
America to try to get
No, I
cast.
mean it's
Nice.
it is the great evener for especially for people who want to audition from just where anywhere how the internet has evened all that stuff out. It's just for people who are used to interacting with the people who who they are auditioning for that it's a little bit frustrating.
But what do you find now? I mean, you're as you said, you auditioning in the early 1990s. Now you're in a different. How can I say this? You're in a different age group. You're in a different section
Yes.
of your life as a career, as an actor. What do you see the difference in auditioning back then to auditioning now? Removing what we just kind of talked about, what do you see the difference? And is there any advice that Richard might have given you on the set, who was in his 40s or 50s when he was doing Stargate, when you were the young up and coming actor? Have you had moments where some of Richard's advice comes screaming back into your head?
Well, Richard, I know that by the time I had met him, Richard wasn't really auditioning for anything. Richard would do Richard projects, or he wouldn't do them. It's funny because I worked a couple of years ago. I worked with Anthony Mackie on Altered Carbon, and he was
Altered Carbon, great show.
And I was reading some sides for another audition, and he said, "What the hell's that?" I'm like, I do my Anthony Mackie. What the hell's that, man? And I'm like, oh, it's an audition. He goes, what for? I'm like, it's pilot season. He's like, oh shit. I did that once, man. I did that once. Never had to do it again. He's so lucky because he's done it once, and now he just does Anthony Mackie things, right? And that's the difference between being a star and not. And now things come to him. He doesn't have to go find them. So I think by the time Rick probably would have had the same advice for me, is like, what do you think about auditioning? Well, don't, well, then I won't work. So a little bit slightly different category, I would say. But not a lot of opinions about auditioning. Most actors do not like auditioning. I'll tell you that much.
Fair enough.
Nope.
Fair enough. Is there an unusual role or a famous role that you auditioned for but you didn't get? Is there one that is there a great story behind a role?
Yeah, most of them.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah, I know the Star Trek, was it Nemesis? You were trying to get onto Star Trek Nemesis, but is there?
Oh yeah, but I've auditioned. I auditioned twice for the Superman that Bryan Singer ended up doing.
Wow.
I auditioned twice or three times because there was three different directors on that, and each time I auditioned, they were all taped auditions from Vancouver. I auditioned
to play Superman. To play
Superman. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
And I auditioned because I was kind of in that right age category.
Yeah.
And then the last one that would be memorable was the Batman that Ben Affleck ended up playing. I read for, and then they handed it to Ben Affleck.
That would have been amazing.
They had a ongoing movie deal with Ben Affleck, so he ended up getting it. So so that was one where I was, but
can we
and many others, I'm sure.
Can we ask you for your Batman real quick? Can we ask you for a Batman or Bruce Wayne?
You know what? Don't, because I just watched the Robert Pattinson one last night. And
Good movie though.
I'm Batman.
Oh man.
I haven't seen that yet.
I think I understood.
I think I aged while I was watching it. So.
Oh God. Oh, it's a pass on that one then?
Well, it's just
I
goes
guess.
on. It's a 3-hour movie with no intermission. So
yeah.
It's 3 hours.
It's
Yeah.
3 hours and 55
Like the
minutes.
Justice
Yeah.
League director's cut.
yeah,
I
watched that all the way through.
it's all three of them.
Oh God.
I won't tell you that.
My
I've
wife
watched
asked
it.
me in the second hour which episode we were on, and I couldn't answer.
I can
Oh my
sit
God.
through the extended edition Lord of the Rings, but you can pause those.
That's
That's the
true.
thing, right?
Yeah, they got
Pause on
natural
HBO
breaking
Max.
points too.
Yeah.
they
No,
stick it in the
we
middle.
could pause it. We just didn't want to make it longer.
Yeah, you want to just get over with.
Can't go on much longer.
Well, I won't tell you that I've seen that one 3 times then. All right, let's move on.
Okay.
If you've got the time, I mean, go for it.
Yeah.
Hey, I got nothing but time, but I don't waste it.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at your acting career now. I mean, how do you prepare for roles now? How far ahead do you get into the script? Like, do you get involved with the costume stuff? Do you have input with the look of a character as well? And I asked this also with another caveat here, because Morgan is here and he's an archaeologist, and he wondered also if you actually looked at anything related to archaeology prior to taking the role in Stargate. Let's stop there. Any thoughts on that, Mike?
Yeah. Well, I think I got so excited about when I found out I was screen testing for Stargate. I think I got so excited I went to the I was in Toronto at the time, and I went to the Field Museum in Toronto like twice to hang out, just to see if by osmosis I would pick up anything. I didn't.
Well,
and then with the show, it of course we bastardized a lot of the archaeology that we used anyway, so it turned into a. Go ahead, Morgan. What do you do?
I have something to say to that, though. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Here we go. Oh boy.
No. As a professional in this field, Stargate is the best representation of how archaeologists act.
Wow.
And then followed by Picard's hobby in Star Trek. And then I really don't pay attention. But Indiana Jones is way the hell at the end.
I was going to say, where's Indiana Jones?
Yeah.
So, because Stargate is great at it, or everything else is awful?
Well,
where on the field is there?
a little bit of both. It's the fact that Daniel Jackson gets upset.
Yeah,
Move thing.
that passion.
And occasionally uses brushes.
Yeah, occasionally.
There's more brushes in Stargate than any other television show dealing with archaeology.
Gotta brush that old fossilized gold.
Michael, is that a brush in your hand at the moment, or is that a pencil?
It's a pencil.
Wait,
Ah,
he's gonna write some notes.
I could see how you could be confused.
He's brushing
At
the
the
dust
end
off of some of the old Stargate scripts.
Brushing this up,
Man.
got AI for 2.0 coming soon. That'll be fun.
No, but that's my admission.
Yeah.
Is that when I was growing up, there's a whole plethora of things that drove me towards archaeology. Daniel Jackson was the linchpin
Yeah.
in that. Because Indiana Jones
Hee hee.
was great. It was action. It was punching Nazis.
Yeah.
But it was never archaeology to me. But
You've never been to space either, Morgan, have you?
Can't say.
Yeah.
I did. Not only am I an archaeologist, I'm an archaeologist for the government.
Oh,
Oh.
there.
I have.
Nope. We got NORAD and archaeologists for the government. No, we're veering too close to something.
So much
Um,
disappointment
you-
all rolled into one.
Kirsty had a question about the roles the notes on your scripts. Ben Browder has stated that he thinks you are the hardest working actor he knows, with scripts full of notes within the margins. What's the process to the notes you write? And is it true that you were even making notes on the AI script? Is that what did I hear that correctly?
Yeah. I mean, listen, with the AI script, it's more like making notes about whose line is it now and what the hell am I talking about. But no, God bless Ben. No, the way I always look at the craft, that everyone I think should look at it as, is that it's like writing. Everything's work in progress, right? And so when you finally perform something, that's not the end of it. It's just where you're at the time that you're performing it. It should continue to evolve. You should, so long as you think about it, so long as it's, filtering around in your head, you should always be evolving something. They say that Stanley Kubrick was still editing films that he'd released many years ago. When he died, he was still editing them. And sculptors, just because they have a deadline to finish something and give it to someone for their art room or whatever, that doesn't mean that it's done inside their mind being shaped. And so long as we have it in our possession, it's always continuing to grow or evolve or become something else. And so that sometimes my notes end up being just gibberish on the page, because one day it'll say something and then I'll scratch that out and I'll write something else in the upper corner, which completely contradicts what I just did, because that's how I feel about it, on this new day. And then other times it's just certain words being underlined for emphasis or breakdown or just thinking about and all this kind of stuff. So I just look at acting as a craft that is continuing to, like I said, when you present it, it's just where it's at. It's not done. It just happens to be where we're at today. So
yeah, most creatives are like that. Most creatives are, it's like, this is what it was for me at this time. 10 years later, my approach would be completely different.
Yeah.
And no surprise that Kubrick was still editing. I mean, I imagine that's why we have 25 different versions of Blade Runner from Ridley Scott. They never stopped editing, I imagine.
Yeah, there's a sign of madness in all of it. So
yeah,
Definitely.
How do you deal with it? Well, let's look at the other side. How do you deal with it when you're dissatisfied with a script? Elizabeth, you had a specific question about Charlie in Saving Hope. You read that Michael wanted to explore his spirit storyline further. Can you ask the question, Elizabeth? Can you hear us? No.
Yes, I'm not sure if my microphone's working at all.
It is now.
Okay. So I heard you say that you wanted to learn more about the background on why Charlie is experiencing what he is. That never really seems to happen.
No.
Were you satisfied with the amount of background you got, and how do you fill in the blanks as an actor?
Yeah, that was a Saving Hope was a unique circumstance, that they didn't really want to, I guess, break down Charlie's reasons. One, because they never wanted to hang too much of a lantern on that part of the show. It was this weird show that Saving Hope had this character who had this ability, but the show really wasn't about that character with that ability. It's like, having the cops from I don't know, Chicago PD, and one of them happens to chase UFOs. If you spend too much time on it, the show will become about guys that chase UFOs. So they tried to make it like it was just his thing and nobody else's, and they didn't want to make a big deal about it a lot of the time. Very weird dynamic in that show to have that happen, which is why I think so many people were in awe that we went as long as we did with such an odd premise for it. Because most of it was supposed to be about Erica's character and about how she was dealing with all of these things, and less about Charlie and his ability to see and help spirits and whatever. And I kept wanting to say, well, okay, if this show were about this character, what would you want to do? Well, he'd want to figure out where it's coming from, right? Wouldn't anybody? And the first thing somebody said was, well, he'd want to help people. I said, but wouldn't you want to know why he has this? Yeah. And they never seemed, up until the last year of the show, was when they finally said, let's do it, but then they didn't do it very well. And I was a little bit disappointed with the execution about how they explained how this came about. So it's when you're a regular on a show, it's an ongoing process, and you kind of have to, you sort of get in the rooms and you have your arguments and your concerns, you air your concerns, and you take your stances as to where it's going, and you live with the end result. So it's one of those things, when you're guest starring on a show, you don't have anything to say about it. Right. You go in, you do your job, you hit your mark, and if they tell you to do it differently, you go do it. So you don't have a ton of input in those kind of circumstances. But when you're starting something from the ground up, like when we did Unspeakable, the miniseries about the blood supply in the 80s, there was a lot of dialogue about how things were going to evolve and whatnot. So when you are starting a character that's a key component of the show, you have a lot more input into it. And I usually take that time to try and give that input if I disagree or, want something changed or whatever. But yeah, Saving Hope was unique in that way. I understood why they couldn't spend too much time on it, but it still felt a little bit like a cheat.
It seems like an odd thing to give to a character. I mean, it's not like he's going bowling or he's a professional bowler on the weekend. He's helping spirits. That seems like an odd thing to kind of sideline.
I mean,
that's why
I get it.
It's such a weird dynamic to have that show not be like, the Ghost Whisperer is about the Ghost Whisperer.
Right.
It's like, but this is like, this is hospital show with the Ghost Whisperer.
I mean, it's kind of like a Scott Bakula thing, right? You know, it's an outlet to tell stories in a way.
I guess.
It is, but the funny thing is, when the story's not about that character, then what's it about? Like, it's
Right.
you know,
Fair.
Right. It becomes.
Is it that?
It starts to
Is it-
distract the audience. So yeah.
Is it why you want to try to die at the end?
Oh no, we just thought that was the best way that what the network wanted. Oh, spoiler alert for anybody.
Network interference.
Right. When they wanted to know how we wanted to end the series, the network very much wanted it to be a happily ever after, and we were like, yeah, but that doesn't make any sense for our show. Our show has never been about happily ever after. It's been about maybe happily ever after, not so happily ever after, and then a kind of happily ever after. And the only way to do that was to kind of do it the way that we did it, because they just wanted our characters to have a wedding and then they all sail off into the sunset. And we're like, without explaining anything? And they were like, yeah, why bother? We don't want it. Let's just have them. And we were so determined that it go down the way that the show, that was true to the show, as opposed to true to some executive's idea of what the audience wants to see. And I understand that that left a lot of the audience cold at the end of it, but it was the right thing to do for what we had set up storytelling wise on the show. So as much as I take a lot of responsibility for it, but I disagree with the notion that they all should have just lived happily ever after.
Plus, Charlie, tell the truth here. Michael, you like to die on your shows.
Well,
you like to die, be dismembered. I mean, you go through a lot of physical ailments on your
to
show.
be fair,
You've done it so well. That's why.
to be fair, a lot of those aren't my choices.
Yeah.
But however,
Well, you don't strike me as a wallflower either, Michael. So I feel
No.
like, yeah.
No, well, when it serves the story, when because a couple of the roles that people have sort of said, why did this character have to die, or why did this character have to die? Like my character on a show called Burn Notice was this really fun spy character to play, and
Yeah.
and people go, why
I
did
saw
he have
that.
to die? And
Yeah.
well, the truth of it is that if he didn't die, the rest of the journey wouldn't have been so poignant. Like, everybody thought
Yeah,
he was this colossal
impactful.
douchebag for the first 4 episodes he was in, and then by the end, when he becomes the client and becomes you hear about his backstory, he becomes this sort of tragic character who everything else you felt about him is washed away, and that's what makes him so interesting. So for his sacrifice at the end to help Michael, as Michael had helped him, was the poignant way to see the character off. And as much as we love the character and everything, the same thing with Hawkman, as much as you love him,
Love them.
he's been setting up for this from the beginning. His passing is really just a turning of the page of his own life. So these characters dying makes their story more poignant and therefore more memorable. So in a way, I agree with it that way. But it's not that every time I'm out playing a guest star that I want to get buried with heavy equipment just because.
And Hamlet died too, I guess. So
Yeah.
I would.
I have to
All the
admit
Shakespeare
that,
guys.
sorry, I have to admit that when I ever watch anything with you in and you survive, I'm like, oh, he's alive.
So it's usually mysterious in some way or another.
Afterwards, he's either arrested or something else happens to him.
Yeah.
It's like very few characters that I've ever played have lived happily ever after.
Yeah.
I might
Let's
add that.
disappear. Mysterious Alchemy Man and Eureka.
You and
Exactly.
Sean Bean seem to have that in common.
Well, that's fair. That's fair. Let's move on to some more questions here. How would you approach the character? Speaking of dying, how would you approach the character of Daniel Jackson differently? 10 years on, in the new Stargate script, Brad Wright has mentioned that he's written Daniel Jackson into it. No, we don't know if he's going to die or not in this one as well, but I know Lauren and Jody are keen to know how you'd play Daniel differently now. They absolutely love you and love this character, but what would you do differently if you had the chance?
Well, it's a great question, and I don't know the answer to it because I'd have to know what context. And I've seen nothing in terms of script or whatever, what Brad's written. He's told me where he wants the character to sort of sit in the story, but I don't know what context of like what greater story he's part of. Like, he hasn't given me any indication of what the larger story is. Obviously older. We'll go with older.
Wiser. I think he was
You
wiser
think he'd-
too.
Why is that?
You
I
think
mean,
he'd
you can
adapt
do the
to-
Marvel thing.
Nothing wrong with that.
De-age everyone like Marvel does.
I gotta ask, do you think he'd adapt some
No,
of
don't.
Jack's point of view?
Yeah, no, it'd be awful.
What do you think?
Well, that's the thing is I don't know. I always one of my earliest if I could have done something early on with the character, like from the pilot to our first two-parter, I would have all of a sudden turned the guy into a bit of a weapons badass because he was stuck on this planet being the leader of this group, and he learned on training them. So all of a sudden, people are expecting this nerd, and he comes back and he's actually ready to pack heat and can dismantle a 9mm and put it back together in 45 seconds, that kind of stuff. So it kind of depends, again, the context, and I don't have that kind of input. So wherever the character comes back is going to be up to Brad about where he decides to place him. And because we don't have things, like Daniel's not part of the military hierarchy or whatnot, it'll be up to Brad to see where he's been hanging his hat and what he's been doing for the last 15 years or whatever it is, if we go that route. So my personal choice would be to have something like something odd like a weapons fetish or something that's really
All right.
So one thing that would be interesting is he could be celebrated now because the theory is having the Stardate program public, and so that would prove Daniel Jackson right from the start.
Well, I think that's odd that you mentioned that. That's a large part of where Brad wants the character sitting in the middle of that still kind of storyline. So you hit the nail on it. I don't think that's a tremendous spoiler, because Brad's talked a lot about wanting the idea of the Stargate program to be public as I guess an obstacle going on in the oncoming stories. But we just have our fingers crossed because we don't know what's going to happen there. So,
well,
I mean, the real question is, did he ever spend any time in Atlantis?
Yeah.
Other than that time with McKay.
Well, like 5 minutes he was there. He's been trying to go there this whole time.
That's true.
That's a good question. Don't know. There was a lot of Daniel Disneyland for him to explore there, so it would be weird if we didn't at least allude to some of the stuff going on.
Didn't Daniel work with Jack in Universe? In Stargate Universe.
Did he what with Jack? Did he
worked with Jack in Stargate Universe?
They weren't working together. No, we were in some scene together, but they weren't working together. No, because Jack is working at Homeworld Command or something like that, or
doing the tutorial, like employee training for the Stargate training.
But at the same time, when he's not doing the employee training movies in Universe, the few scenes that Jackson's in, he does have the very Criminal Minds NCIS kind of role.
Yes, he was kind of like
black leather jacket with a 9mm under it. And
yeah.
Undercover.
Yeah, that was odd, but it was there could be something there. Could be something there.
Let's move on to another section here. Which actors or scenes have really changed the way you worked? I know Corinne here really wanted to know this too. What are some of the things you've picked up acting with others over the years that you've really kind of taken to heart in your experiences?
Oh boy.
Yeah, man.
I think
get intimate now. Come on.
I think if depends on the partnership. I mean, I've worked with actors that I won't mention by name, although I'd love to. That are there, whatever is going on, that their Hollywood is bigger than their craft, if you will, meaning that they were too concerned about superficial things, details that had nothing to do with the craft. And then I've worked with actors who are all about the craft, and so those are the ones that you take something from, you know, whether it be for something in the moment or you borrow it for another project or something like whatever, like if an actor challenges you in a lot of different ways, and it's unexpected, or the way that they challenge you is unexpected, you just take that. You're always doing this, just going, oh, I'll take some of that and a little bit of that and whatever, and putting it into your basket and you know, using it for later on, because so many actors can teach you something. So there's not many specifics that I have. There's other times where you sit there and go, ooh, not that.
Yeah,
you emphasize. Go ahead, Joe.
No, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, Mike.
No, it's just, you empathize sometimes when people are, have put themselves in a situation where you can tell that there's whatever they're doing is not working or whatever, and they're having a tough time with it too, and you just go, yeah, oof, because it there's a lot of things that go on our end of the business that are not even in your control. For example, and I'm sure we were going to get to this at some point, when I was doing a TV movie in 2002, I think, a gal I was working with, she had multiple personality disorder. I was playing this psychologist, and she had multiple personality disorder. Right. And she had gotten cast the day before we started to film the movie, which was crazy because she had put something on tape or gone into an audition and done 3 scenes, and then they loved her, and then she was cast, and then she got the script, and then she had 8 characters to play throughout the course of this show. Right. And she got sick about 3 or 4 days into it, like just with a really bad cold, and had a young child at home and all this kind of stuff. And so all the time that one could have had to work on these characters that she was playing, because every character, even if it's an other within a mental disorder, is a 3-dimensional character to that person. Yeah. And what it made me watch this and go, well, if I ever have the opportunity or curse to do something like that, to play that kind of role, time is your only ally. And that wasn't fair what they did to her, because I watched her struggle with those things, and she'd grab hold of stereotypes and whatever got them through. But I could see her struggling. So when I got to do it on Lifeboat, an episode called Lifeboat in season 7, great episode. I made sure to get that script about a week before we started shooting. And every night when I would go home after a day of shooting something, I would be doing research and trying to, with that knowledge, with that sort of warning sign of what I'd seen in my head of like, okay, this is your only time you're going to get to do this, because you're not going to get any time on set and it won't have any value. So bring dimension to it now and take advantage of it. Even if you're up till 3 a.m, do it. Otherwise you won't get it done and you won't be happy with the end result. It's a tremendous opportunity for an actor as well. Right. So that's what I learned from that. So you can take that experience, which wasn't mine, but you put that into your basket knowing that that's something to remember for the time that it comes about, like that kind of stuff. So there's always something we can learn from either an experience or from another actor that is valuable, for sure.
Do you still
I actually know someone with DID, dissociative identity disorder, and he says you did an amazing job.
You did.
You did an absolutely incredible job of showing that.
But how do the rest of him feel?
I have several friends.
He's actually the only one that fronts most of the time. He co-fronts, and so the only one I ever talked to is him. But he's very much aware of everyone else in there, and they all feel the same way. Like, you did a really good job of portraying.
That's great, given how poorly it's often misrepresented in media.
It's so often misrepresented.
Yeah, we're dealing with it now with Moon Knight currently. Moon Knight
and they're doing. I actually know several people with DID, and they're doing a pretty good job too. Yeah, so.
I'd love to hear Daniel Jackson's thoughts on Moon Knight and the archaeology in Moon Knight.
I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen it? Watched it.
Me neither. I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's pretty good.
It's decent.
With voice casting, you did the voice of Thor, a very powerful voice. How is it different creating a voice? I do voiceovers as well, but this is a very famous role here that you played in Stargate, kind of a dual role, along with Daniel. I know Linda and Sandra are really interested in voice acting themselves, so they would love to hear how you prepared to voice Thor in Stargate.
Well, what's funny about that is there's a few things that came up in the early years of Stargate that were just kind of off the cuff things. Even when I ended up playing Michello in an episode called Holiday, that was just an off the cuff thing. They were having trouble casting an older gentleman in Vancouver to play that character because he was, supposed to be in his 80s. And then I was supposed to be able to imitate my character while he was in the older form in the bed and whatnot, and while I was doing his character. And so I started talking about it one day, and I said, well, if we got me in makeup, I could probably do it. And Michael Greenberg, who was Rick's partner at the time and one of our executive producers, was like, shit, let's do that. That's how that came about. And it was the same thing with Thor. We was like, we just need a good actor, like, because we didn't know where the character was going. We didn't know where Thor was going. So he just came up to me and said, we just need a good actor to like do the voice of this puppet guy. We don't know if he's going to stick around. Like, would you want to do that? And I said, yeah, sure. Because he had, I think his first appearance had 1 or 2 lines.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of went away and looked at the character and what he was. And I think what a lot of voice actors do is, you know, they all have many different imitations that they do, or you know, as I entertained my kids for years. Now they get sick of it, like by doing my Stewie impersonation. So a lot of voice actors are like that. They do a lot of impersonations, and then you start to blend them and you start to turn them into something of your own when you have an audition or whatnot. And that's what we did with that. Is I looked at that, and my first thought was I wanted him to sound a little bit neutral, somewhat omnipotent and intelligent. And my first thought was, oh, I'll try and make him very similar to Hal in 2001.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
another irony about that is Douglas Rain, who did the voice of Hal, my last year at Stratford, he played Shylock in Merchant of Venice, a production of Merchant of Venice that I was doing. And so whenever he'd go to the door at the end of the production, the stage door to leave, he was constantly bombarded with people with copies, not to sign copies of something about Shakespeare or Merchant of Venice, but to sign copies of 2001: A Space Odyssey. So I thought this would be a great homage to Dougie Rains to try and do him like, to do him a little bit more like Hal without the accent, and sort of, what do you think? I don't know. Just sort of something a little upper register with a little bit more, you know, in that. And slowly over time, it became a little bit more like Stewie. The more dialogue he got, I thought, well, Hal would never have this much dialogue. So all of a sudden, he started to turn into Stewie, especially when I started to do more scenes with Richard Dean Anderson. But that's where it kind of went. So that's how that evolved, if you will, how it came about and how it evolved. Not exactly earth-shattering what to teach a student stuff, but that's where it sits, and that's where a lot of voice actors do, is that they, like I said, they start off doing a lot of impressions and imitating a lot of voices, like even other human beings' voices, their mother, their father, their sister, their brother, their teacher, they just start to turn those characters into caricatures for them to use, you know, as a menu for them to use when they have voice auditions. So yeah.
How do you get to the auditioning part, though?
Oh, well, that's something. Voice actors have agents, just like any other actor does. Some people specialize in voice auditions, and other people have it as part of their portfolio. Someone like Terrell Rothery, for example, she does a lot of voiceovers, but she also does a lot of in front of the camera acting. I don't know, because I'm not a voice actor. I couldn't tell you specifically how to go about it. I just know that the way to go about it is you make a demo reel. Of the various kind of characters you do. I mean, if you don't have any work in front of you, like, you know, even my wife's done an animated show, but I don't have any like voice work that I've done other than doing an audio book or two and doing some stuff on Stargate. So you just make up a demo reel of the different voices you do, and an agent looks to see if they can fit you into their roster, and if that works, that works, and if not, you move on. To another agent.
I will say there are a lot of resources out now for voice acting, where the easiest way to get out there is to do more roles. And like on Behind the Voice Actors, they'll do casting calls for amateur like dubbing projects all the time, and you just get more work under your belt, do more. I've done a few amateur roles like that.
Yeah, if you're on YouTube too, honestly.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Justin Briner, who's in My Hero Academia now, he started on YouTube with Team 4-Star.
Yeah. And it's just a bunch of amateur projects, getting, you know, demos and a reel under your belt of all your various voice acting, getting video games, small projects, whatever.
Well, you know,
I know.
From the grunt level, and that's where I've been. I ended up getting represented by William Morris for Spanish and English voiceover. From the grunt level where I started, with little to no experience, what Michael said is correct. Get the demo done, and they will have professional scripts that have been used that they will give you, and you can practice on, and then they'll edit your demo for you, and you're going to present a more professional product. And so that's really a great way to get yourself an agent. And from that point, the agent can walk you into rooms and you can get seen. So yeah, you can go to YouTube route as well. It's certainly an avenue to explore, but going from the grunt level, that's what you really want to do. And do your research on the demo reel producer. That's really important to make sure a person who has done
any particular agencies that have good reputations?
Well, it depends on where you live, right?
Yeah, where do you live?
San Diego.
Okay, well, let's do some research later. I'll give you make it happen. Michael, can you tell me about your and us here, your about your relationships with the cast and crew, like away from the scenes? I mean, you started doing Stargate when you were 27. Amanda was in her early 30s. Richard was, I think, late 40s. So did you guys hang out outside of filming a lot? What would you get up to? And did it change as you all got older and, started kind of moving on with your own lives? What do you remember from that time, or what do you, how are those relationships now?
Well, I think in the early days, when we all kind of got put here in Vancouver, just all of a sudden, like boom, you're coming in here to do some camera tests, and you've been cast, and you're coming in to do some wardrobe, and you're in a hotel, and you're there, and it's summer camp for grown-ups basically. Rick was outside of that group, like the core group that did the pilot. We worked together for about a month and a half, and that includes people like Jay Acavone, and I don't think Terrell was part of that at the time, but Alexis Cruz and Vaitiari, and so all the people that were here for a long period of time doing it all just sort of became summer camp. And once that was done, when of course we spent almost every time we'd go back to the hotel, we'd go back, go to the bar for a drink and talk about next day's work or what happened that day. And then some people would go to bed, and some people would go out and enjoy frivolity for a while. I'm not mentioning names. Once the pilot was done, we had about a 2-week process to go get apartments and whatnot, and because we were going to be doing the series now. And so once that happened, everybody kind of got back into their lives, and families moved in, and some people went away, and there were some of us that still managed to find time to hang out on weekends and whatnot, but it became a bit more of a whatever you were establishing your own life. And of course, as time marched on, everybody became so bloody tired that nobody was meeting up after work. It was all you could do to go home, learn your lines, and get back the next day. So and that happens with a lot of shows. It depends on how old you are. Rick never was part of that because Rick had already had his fun and frivolity. For many years, especially here in Vancouver, he was kind of burnt out of all that stuff, and so to get him even to go out for dinner was a challenge. Wow. At any point of the show. Again, absolutely no offense to him. I could understand now being around that age where he was now. I get it.
Yeah.
But it depends on the show, because I still have, if I go film something, like when we first started Saving Hope, me and a couple of the guys, we didn't have anything to do. We didn't have families there when we were in Toronto shooting. So we would go out and do stuff for, on weekends and whatnot, just to get out of our own heads and to get out of our own routines. So every production that you do, especially if you do like a quick 5-week movie somewhere or whatever, it becomes like a little camp. And everybody's, getting into each other's business and finding out. But at my age now, it's much more about going home and getting proper rest and preparing for the next day than it is about, anything else. So that's a little different.
What's proper rest?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
It's a little ironic too, because in Stargate, Jack's always the one who's trying to get people to hang out outside of work. Meanwhile, he was the buzzkill.
Go fishing.
Not imitating life, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, they were going to go sit in a pond and fish in a pond without fish.
Yeah,
they were going to be doing a whole
that's
lot.
More Rick's speed,
Fish up until a point. No fish up until a point.
We spent a lot of time talking about, where you're at now, where where you've come from here in your journey as an actor. Michael, what would you, when you go to your website, there's that beautiful old school black and white headshot sitting there with the leg up and everything. What would you tell that kid that your younger self as you started acting? Because Laura's in here and she's a proud mom of daughters working in the arts. What would you want them to know about getting into the business of being an actor?
Have fun. Have fun, especially when you're doing it. And if it's something that you're trying to do, if it's something that you want to do, make sure that you want to do it because you enjoy it. Because a lot of the way it's sold, a lot of the, you know, the glitz and the glamour is very not correct. It's a tough business, and it is a business. It's not very glamorous most of the time. They sell that glamour, and you get attracted to it. Some people get attracted to it for the wrong reasons. And so that's the thing. Make sure you really love it, because a lot of this stuff is going to be about your relationship with yourself and the craft, not about making tons of money, not about becoming a big star, and not about flashy red carpets and things like that. So it's about enjoying the process, enjoying the acting, enjoying the people that you're with. Because it's, you know, when you get to my age now and you realize that you play make-believe for a living, you better still like it. Otherwise, you're going to start second guessing why the hell you're doing this in the first place. It's not exactly, you know, it's not a position in life that, you know, adults put you on a pedestal for. They think it's cool that you're on TV, but, you know, being a lawyer or, you know, being involved in politics and human rights and any, you know, upper echelon business stuff is always more important than what we're doing in terms of real life stuff. So you have to really enjoy what we do. And therefore, if you want to get into it, be sure you love it, because not a lot of it is going to be what you think it's going to be. So make sure you love it.
Is that also what you would tell a young Michael Shanks? Is that also?
I'd say just enjoy it more. I'd tell the young version of me to enjoy it more. I was very, you know, intent on getting it right a lot of the time, and I didn't enjoy it as much as I probably could have. So I would just tell that guy to chill out and enjoy it more.
Fair enough.
I think that's great advice. What lessons, though, have you learned from acting that you could maybe impart here for anyone who is hanging out with us, or if I don't know if the companion's gonna make this available for other people to see down the road, from working on all these sets that you've worked on and different genres of shows and films that you've done, that you take in for the rest of your life, like dealing with rejection, unpredictability, as you mentioned, the toughness of the business, working on a project, working with a large crew. Are there lessons beyond just have fun, beyond, you know, enjoy the moment, that you would maybe want to impart to people here?
Yeah, I think, I mean, as an actor, and it's something I just read recently, and I can't even remember where I read it, where because I've done a lot of auditions that have gone absolutely nowhere recently, and somebody posed it to me this way, which I think has a lot of validity, which is auditioning is a privilege and should be enjoyed, which I do not enjoy. And I said, why? And they said, well, because it's an opportunity to have an audience. Whether you see them or you don't see them, it's an opportunity to have an audience for your work. So that treat it that way, that it's not the chance to get a job. It's not the, you know, you're not entitled to doing this or having this because of who you are, who you think you are, or whatever. That it's more about this. You have this opportunity to perform in front of an audience, and that's a privilege, especially as we know in this day and age where, you know, audiences have been, you know, locked in homes a lot of the time, and especially when it comes to stuff like theater. I know a lot of people who had made a living off theater who don't make a living off of theater anymore, because it wasn't providing much of a living the last few years. So,
what about being on set? Like, you know, don't spend too much time at Crafty. Make sure you're working on things like that. You know what I'm saying.
You want to go there? I think that that all depends on who you are. Like, my wife's an incredible social butterfly on a set. She loves to hang out with people and shoot the shit and talk about this, that, and the other. And I'm the kind of guy, as soon as I can go back to my trailer to study, I will. That's because I feel like this, like, you know, the introvert curse, right? Of like, when you're with people, you can engage, but something's getting pulled out of you all the time. Energy is getting pulled out of you all the time, and so you need to recharge. So you need to go back and bunker down and recharge, and that's kind of how I feel about it. So but that depends on who you are. Some people can survive, and I also need to focus. Like if I get distracted, some guys would try and do this to me all the time. They right before when they're slating for camera, I've got a dolly grip who's chatting my ear off, and as soon as they yell action, I got to go on screen. I need a couple of seconds at least to get prepared to do that. So sometimes I'd have to have people hush for a second so I can just get prepared. But some people think that we can just turn it off and on like that.
Right.
And some people work differently that way. But hey, man, there's nothing like free food. So when you're talking about craft service being there, I mean, you don't want to store it like for winter, like a bear, but I'm not going to say ignore it. That's all I'm saying. There's some starving students out there know exactly what they're talking about. Yeah.
Stack up.
I hear that.
So does that mean there is room for an introvert in Hollywood in some way?
There's always room for an introvert.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. Yes, absolutely. A lot of actors I know are introverts.
Yeah.
That's why they became actors, is it gets them a chance to step outside of themselves and do things they wouldn't normally do, and then they can go back to just being them. So
that's exactly why I'm drawn to it, because I'm just like, I'm quite an introvert, but like when I do stupid little videos, I'm just like, I can just,
be whatever you want.
Yeah, just have
Big
fun.
time.
Yeah. You get a mask to hide behind. Oh, absolutely. That's
Literally.
that's
A lot of performers are introverts. A lot of it surprise you. A lot of comedians are introverts as well. It's very surprising how many performers are introverts in the business. Yeah, there's a lot of introverts for sure. I want to ask you one last question before we get into an overall Q&A for a few minutes here. There's a question that came through here. How did you craft Daniel Jackson and make it your own as you were going through this process? Peter was wondering how you approached replacing James Spader in the role of Daniel Jackson. We've heard numerous times. Everyone knows that your James Spader impression was instrumental to you getting this. But how have you constructed it to kind of veer away a little bit from what James had laid the groundwork for in the movie?
Well, that was the easy part, was the James Spader impression, because you could, when I got the audition, I read the sides and I went, it sounds like they're just doing almost the same rhythm as the character from the movie. And I went, well, that makes sense. And there it is for me to steal from. So I'll just do that and see where it goes. And that's what turns out that's exactly what they were looking for. Somebody who kind of looked like the character, who would fill those boots and do the same thing, because Rick was going to be so different doing what he was doing. So now you take that information and then you tell the actor for a pilot that's what he's going to be doing. You go, oh, great, this is going to be awesome. And then about 4 months in, when we found out that we had gotten picked up third and fourth season. So here we are 4 months into shooting. It was around, I think, May or June of 97. We knew we had 44 episodes. And then before we were even done, we were halfway through the first season, they gave us 2 more seasons of work, which will never happen ever again. I can't even imagine anywhere that you have 88 episodes. So you start going, oh, I better start doing something with this character that's not just James Spader, because I'm going to be doing this for a while. So you start to just pare away things that you don't want to use or that aren't you. And it happens because it's a series, they just start, shuffling off one here, one there. All of a sudden there's no more sneezing. There's no more, then he doesn't have longer hair anymore and his cadence isn't quite the same, or it's the same but different. And it's just, you slowly are allowed to evolve the character into something that's a bit more you, rather than just doing a ripoff of James Spader, for the rest of your career. Thank God.
Yeah. Yeah, Rick said he wanted more levity in Jack. So I imagine you wanted to steer Daniel to be a little bit closer to who you were, so it was more instinctual, the stuff you were working through.
Well, that was the thing. When Rick was taking his character in that kind of goofballer direction and would change his lines a lot of the time, it kind of left us with very little to do other than, because our next line made no sense with what he just made sense with. So the only thing to do was just to, okay, I'm going to go with this. And I started I started actually trying to predict what he might say when I was going over my lines. I started going, well, he's not going to say that. So he's probably going to say something like this. So I'll say something like this. This is what my preparation the night before became, was to predict what might come out of his mouth. And oftentimes I was right, I might add.
Well, there you go.
And so we would just, I would be what's the best way to put it? I would premeditate my improv, if you will. So you know, and sometimes I would actually write like exchanges, like when we I think the fifth race, when we had our back and forth of you know, no, you didn't. Yes, I did. I just said to him, I said, should we do the thing? And he goes, oh yeah, let's do the thing. And the thing was, you know, going all Abbott and Costello with it, which, you know, they have a choice. They could either use it or they could lose it in the edit, and they chose to use it. And then and they realized how much fun we could have with it. So, you know, it just slowly evolved.
That's awesome. All right, let's open it up to some questions for a few minutes, and then we're gonna wrap up. You know, as we're just a little bit over time, not too much, just a little bit. Alyssa sent a private one in. I want to start with her. Do you have any tricks for learning lines? Rote memorization before adding in the character or being in character from the beginning? Small chunks of full run-throughs, and did you rehearse on the set or just start filming? Tricks for memorizing lines, and did you rehearse or not?
No, we always rehearse, but rehearsal is more. Rehearsal has always been, especially on Stargate, was always less about the actors than it was about the cameras. So you weren't there when you were rehearsing. You were there more to block the scene. You'd rehearse it maybe once when the cameras were in position, but again, that was for the cameras. It was up to the actors if they wanted to run the scene to go do it themselves, which any actor on that show was happy to do if you just asked them. And most actors in general are happy to do it. As I've gotten older, my process has come from, you know, just learning my lines at home to there's now great apps they have now. I use an app called Line Learner, which is one where you program you do the voices. And so you put in the voices of your lines and the other characters' lines. You can change the voices. Like there's a part of it that allow you to change it to something else, higher or lower. And then you can just put the earphones in and listen to the scene, or you can run the scene without a partner. So that's a nice cheat, especially now that I'm 51 and lines don't land as easy or stay as long as they used to. So any way you can cheat the system to do it is great. But yeah, actors on set are always, you know, more than happy to run lines with you. I've been, you know, from people I don't even know that have summoned me over to run a scene or something like that. Has been it's always anytime you can do it is a blessing and a way to get to know the other actor and just a way to work on a scene. So,
have you ever recorded a scene when you're acting opposite your imitation of James Spader, just for fun?
I never have. No, haven't yet. No.
I
love
that one away a long time
link
ago.
voice acting.
All right. If you haven't had a question asked, we want to keep it to people who haven't had a question asked. If you have a question now, raise your hand and I will point to. Okay, the girl up top. They don't have your names here, so I don't know up front. So with the sweatshirt that says ANH or something like that, please.
It's Angelita. Hi.
Oh, hey. Go ahead.
How do you deal with the mental roller coaster of being in the business? Like just like you said, sending in auditions and being into the abyss and getting all the rejections, not getting it. And then also the actual emotional roller coaster that an actor goes through scenes.
It's more difficult. I have no problem with going through the roller coaster of doing scenes and whatnot. It's that's the fun part. That's the part that, you know, is the reason we do this. As they say that, you know, what is the phrase that we do the part between action and cut for free. We get paid for all the other bullshit that surrounds it. So, so the roller coaster as a performer is the roller coaster of rejection, I guess is the best way to put it, which is the stuff that you think that you're gonna nail the crap of, or you did an awesome job that you never hear about. And that's a new thing. Like I said, I'm used to getting some kind of feedback on stuff that I've done of like, oh, they like this, but they didn't like this, or they went this direction with it or whatever. Now you just don't hear anything. And if you try and bug them for it, they don't remember. They don't have an answer for you. So that is a new frontier that I'm dealing with now. And it is quite frustrating. And I'm not dealing with it very well, but I'm going to have to start because it sounds like it's going to be the way of the world from here on forward. So it's tough, but you have to, again, this is the part where you have to love it. You have to love doing it. You have to love the opportunities to do it, and just relish the idea that you're still at it, that you're still in the middle of it. And tomorrow it might happen. Somebody said that too, that you have to keep the dream that thing is going to happen to you tomorrow. And that's the thing we keep pursuing, and whatever that thing is to you, whether it be a big role or a big opportunity or something where you'll finally get to the place where you have choice in your career is probably everybody's dream in this business.
Yeah. Just to work consistently, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
Judith, you wanted to know more about Michael directing that Double Jeopardy episode, one of 4 TV episodes he's directed. So what's your question for him?
Well, basically, how was it directing as opposed to acting, but also directing 2 Jacks? 2 Ricks. It must have been pretty difficult.
Yes, I will say that. That was what we were talking about that when we were doing the AI project too. Somebody asked that very question about like, how did it feel it was a lot of work for starters. Directing is a lot more specific work than the acting is because you're only in part of the script. But as a director, you are the script. You are, every detail about it you have to know, every scene, every nuance, all the things if you're doing your job correctly, basically. So it's a lot more work, a lot more notes, and that was my first time too. So there was a lot of nerves and uncertainty about how to do certain things. I'm not sure it went entirely Fabu. It wasn't the type of episode I think I was expecting to do. There was a lot of technical elements to it that I was not proficient in, and especially that episode because we were doing things that no show had done before, none of our episodes. So there was nothing for me to study to be prepared for. And one of which was Richard Dean Anderson fighting himself, which was, but I fortunately had a lot of help from him. He worked with his stunt double on that. And we did face replacement was in its early phases. And that's how we managed to pull it off. But Rick kind of worked out what he was comfortable with his stunt double, and they just brought it to life that way. Which was very, as I said to Amanda, it was very different from her show. She didn't have any Ricks in her first episode directing. I had 2 of them. I did get to blow my own head off, which is, always fun.
Did they kill you off early because of the fact that you were directing?
Yes. Yeah, they made sure that I wasn't in the previous episode, and I was barely in that episode as an actor, specifically so that I would have time to do my homework behind the scenes. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it was one of my favorite episodes. So you did a good
awesome.
job.
Thank you.
Judith also wants to know, and I imagine Christina and Linda do as well. Do you have any pets?
I do. I'm surprised they haven't made an appearance.
Well, I saw the dog in the
I
background.
did see the dog walk through right at the beginning.
Yeah. Well, if there was a dog that walked in the background, it wasn't mine because we have 2 cats.
It's concerning.
Oh, if only.
Maybe I should shut the back door.
Rachel had an interesting question as well about how you worked with children on Saving Hope and in other situations as an actor. Rachel, do I have that right, or do you want to ask the question yourself?
Well, it's just you really do a good job when you act with children, and I just wondered if you have to. I'm sure you have to take it a little bit differently. I'm a teacher, so I've worked with children, so I just wondered how you approach that when you work. And I really like especially the Henry, the little boy named Henry in Saving Hope.
Oh yes.
He was really good.
Yeah, he was very good. No, the best gift that children as performers have, and why they're so absolutely, they draw your eye when they're on screen with anybody, are the same reason as pets, for example. I hate to say it, but it's true. Is the benefit from them is they're so present. They're just there. They don't care. They're not, there's no guile in children. And that's what I love, why I love working with them, and why they're so fascinating to watch on screen, is that they're just, their gift is that they're present, and so for you to act with them, be present. Just like them when I deal with my kids here, it's like, be present when they're children, and they're wonderful. And that's the best way to work with them, and it's also the best way to have fun with them. And as long as you're having fun with them, then you're going to have a great time working, because I just love the fact there's no guile in children. They're not trying something to make you do something else so that they can fake you out, and they don't want anything from you other than what you're giving back to them. And that makes it fantastic. They're my favorite people.
Rachel, Christina, and Amari, neither one of you have asked a question. Do you want to ask a question before I get to one that's been sent to me directly? Just want to put the floor open for any of you three.
My voice is shot, so I will
What's
let. My voice is shot, so I'm good.
Well, if you send it to me in a direct message, I will ask for you with these dulcet tones. Nora said, sorry, Mara, go ahead. Yeah, what's your question? Sorry, Mara, go ahead.
I was just wondering if you still get people from like Air Force, in the military families, come up to you and are like talking about how it's like a family like sit down Stargate was for them.
A lot of families, not just from military families, but from all over, are still to this day. We've now reached the official age where the kids that grew up watching the show now watch it with their families. Which,
wow,
that really makes me feel young. I got to tell you, but it's true. And that's, I guess, one of the benefits of the show is that, the nudity in the pilot aside.
Yeah.
That it's a great family show, and kids love it, and adults love it, and they still share it. And the fact that another generation is sharing that with their kids is phenomenal. So yes, that happens all the time.
I just wanted to ask that because it's my dad used to. He's still in the Air Force, but he anytime he went overseas, when he came back, we'd marathon Stargate SG-1 together.
Oh, fantastic! That's great.
Joel, you had your hand up. Is that correct? Did you want
Yeah.
to ask a question? Yeah, please.
I was just gonna ask if there was any particular sort of genre or character role that you've always wanted to delve into, or a story of your own that you've wanted to tell.
I'm developing stories of my own right now with a company that we're trying to get them produced. So we are we've got one show in development right now, and a couple other percolating ideas as well. So we've decided to, instead of waiting around to get cast in something, we've decided to just go out and make our own stuff and see what happens there. So I think that's the best approach, rather than just sitting on your hands. If you're creative, start doing other things, start writing, and start trying to produce it as well. So that's what we're doing.
Any hints at what that might be?
Cool. I won't curse them by talking about them, but they're certainly adventure kind of stories.
Awesome.
Nora, you had your hand up as well. Did you have a question?
I did. It was actually the one that I sent through to you.
Oh, okay.
And you were going to ask it. That's cool. I get to ask it.
Yeah,
directly.
I was, but please go ahead.
It's around dealing with the lows of the career. So I loved hearing you talk about how amazing it was and how much you have to love what you do, because that's something that I hold on to quite dearly. My question is, how do you deal with the lows, and any tips and tricks on, moving on and getting over it, and, faith in yourself that it's not going to happen again?
I don't know if there's any one true trick for it. I think that keeping yourself busy with, well, first of all, having a good balance between the work and your life, because you don't want to let the one, if one isn't going well, you don't want to let it spoil the other. So you have to have that balance and sort of put it in perspective. I don't know. I'm still learning about how to deal with that, because I'm sort of in this unprecedented rut that I've never experienced before, and it's odd, and so it's an ongoing learning process. But the way that I've been dealing with it is finding other things to do rather than just dwelling on it. And if it's, which is difficult, because I gave up a lot of hobbies for many years to do the craft, because when we're doing the shows, there's no time for anything else. So I gave up a lot of friends and a lot of hobbies to do the work. And then when you all of a sudden they say, oh, you have all this time on your hands, you go, to do what? I stopped talking to those people 10 years ago. What am I going to do now? So I'm just enjoying being part of my kids' lives now, and finding other outlets for those for work thoughts. We're working on producing a play here in Vancouver, and again, like I said, we're working on producing some other shows ourselves. So wherever you can find to sort of feel like your hat is still in the ring, then that's where you have to go.
Well, listen, Corinne, you have one question. You had your hand up. This will be the last question because we got to wrap up here. We're an hour and a half already. So go ahead, Corinne.
Thank you. So go back to how you said, going to the movies really, spoke to your imagination, and that's what inspired you. So like, of all the things you've watched and loved, if you could pick one thing to have been in, what would it be?
What to be in?
Any movie or TV show you love, like if you could have picked one to be in any role, which one would you just love?
Well, right now it would probably have to be something to do with superheroes, because that's where my son's fixation is right now. So my girls wouldn't care as long as it doesn't embarrass them. But my son, he really wants something superhero oriented. So I think it would have to sit somewhere there for sure.
Someone say Hawkman? Oh wait, that's already happened.
Yeah. They made a movie. Damn it.
Damn it. Joe, you had a hand up. So let's make it quick. One last question, Joe. We got to go. What do you got?
It's good. My question isn't really good for this amount of time we have left.
Okay.
So you know what?
Joe's got like a 5-parter. Okay. What's that? You're good? You're good? Okay. All right, Joe. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for joining us here, and of course, thanks to the great Michael Shanks. Michael, thanks so much.
Thank you guys
very much.
Thank you so much.
Some good questions there too. Yeah,
I agree. And you everyone who's here, you'll be receiving a really awesome bunch of gifts here. You're going to get a companion notebook, an enamel pin, and you're also going to get a signed certificate from Michael Shanks as well for what you were able to experience here today. And we're going to take a photo. I don't know who is going to do that photo. Tommy, who does the photo, or Hattie? How are we going to do this? Can one of y'all come on in and let me know how we're going to do this?
Everyone's fixing their hair.
Yeah. Let me work on that.
There is no fixing this.
It's kind of animated. It's stuck as it goes.
I showered before this, man. I don't have any makeup on, nothing.
I love that. Well done.
All right. Tom, what
So
do you got for us?
when you're ready, John, do you want to count us down and I'll take a photograph for us?
Do it. Everybody put on your best smiley face. All right. 3, 2, 1.
Very nice. Well done.
right.
Thank you very much.
Awkward.
I hope nobody blinks.
You all blinked.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't control when my model blinks. So if it did, well, I guess I could have put it in what I call serial killer mode. My eyes get all big and my mouth gets all creepy.
Yeah, please don't put it in that mode. Let's promote one thing. You've got AI2, Stargate AI2 coming here on May 21st.
Is that coming?
It's the first time that you've read lines with Amanda Tapping and Richard Dean Anderson. What, like 15 years? So what can you say to promote that? And not that these people aren't going to go see it, but what would you?
Already did it, so it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. You guys are going to have a lot of fun. It makes more sense than the last one, which is a positive thing if you guys watch that.
And the last one was funny.
And Rick is just as confused as he ever was, so it's perfect.
You and your back in the last one was really funny.
All right, there you go. And that's that. Look for that on May 21st from the Companion. And everyone, I think we should just say thank you, Companion. Thank you, the Companion. All at once.
Thank you.
Thank you, Companion.
And thank you to Michael Shanks. And I think that's going to be it for today. So you all take care. It was a pleasure meeting all of you and hearing your all questions. And I'm sure Michael enjoyed it as well. Any final words, Michael, as we say goodbye?
Thanks,
No, thank you guys so much to meet all of you,
Thank
your
you.
pets, your avatars, and your diversity. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great. Let's do this again.
Thank you and welcome.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I would love that.
Yes, please.
Absolutely.
I guess I'll have to try and see all you in the Discord. Anyone who is there, I'll have to join it.
Please
Yes,
join.
please
It's a
join.
lot of fun.
I guess I gotta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about all kinds of different things in the
Yeah,
loads of
now
different
that I know it's
franchises.
there, I definitely
I'll
want
have
to hang
to
out with more
find
of the
it.
community.
Yeah, I'll find it.
I'll have to find it.
All right.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank
Hattie
you,
said
guys.
we'll send the
We love you, Michael.
Take care, everybody.
Andrew.
Go ahead and,
Yeah.